The screech of rubber against my pristine gravel was the first warning that my Saturday was about to be ruined. I looked out the window to see a white SUV brazenly parked dead center on my private lawn, crushing the hydrangeas I'd spent all spring nursing. Standing next to the driver's door was Beatrice, the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association, checking her lipstick in her side mirror like she owned the damn dirt beneath her tires. How does someone even possess that much audacity? I felt the heat rise in my chest, a slow burn that tasted like copper and old resentment. I stepped onto the porch, the humid morning air clinging to my skin, and the scent of freshly cut grass, now mingled with the oily stench of exhaust, hit me like a slap. Beatrice didn't even look up as I approached. She just smoothed her floral polyester blouse and sighed. The long, dramatic sound that suggested my presence was a minor inconvenience she hadn't scheduled into her busy day of terrorizing the neighborhood. "Excuse me, Beatrice? But did you lose your way to the actual street?" Beth. My voice tight, vibrating with a forced politeness that felt like holding back a landslide. She finally turned, squinting through her oversized designer sunglasses, and gave me that thin, bloodless smile that never reached her eyes. "Honey, don't be so dramatic. It's just for a few hours while the community clubhouse floors are being waxed." She said, her tone dripping with a condescension so thick you could drown in it. "My usual spot is taken. And since your lawn is technically part of the aesthetic easement of the association, I figured you wouldn't mind contributing to the greater good." The greater good? I looked down at my mangled flowers, their blue petals smeared into the mud. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer electric surge of over a year's worth of her petty fines and nitpicking emails about the height of my mailbox. "Is that why you're ignoring the private property sign 6 inches from your bumper, Beth?" My breath hitching as I tried to keep my temper from detonating. She just laughed, a dry, rattling sound like dead leaves blowing across a driveway, and began walking toward the clubhouse without a backward glance. "Just make sure you don't water the grass while I'm parked there. It'll leave spots on the finish," she called out over her shoulder. I stood there in the silence she left behind, the only sound being the distant drone of a lawnmower and the frantic drumming of my own heart. The air felt heavy, suffocating. I looked at her car, a pristine, late-model luxury beast that probably cost more than my first house. It sat there like a monument to her ego, mocking me. Then, a thought flickered in my mind, cold and sharp as an ice pick. Beatrice loved rules. She lived for bylaws. She thrived on the fine print. It was time she learned that the law of the land beats the whim of a HOA president every single time. I didn't yell. I didn't chase after her. I simply walked back inside, my footsteps heavy on the wooden floorboards, and picked up the phone. My heart was thumping against my ribs, thud-thud, thud-thud, as I dialed a number I'd saved months ago after she had my cousin's car ticketed for being parked for 20 minutes in a guest spot. Apex heavy-duty towing? I need a priority removal for a vehicle trespassing on private residential land. I have the deed and the photos. The owner is not cooperating. The dispatcher's voice was a low, gravelly hum, a comforting contrast to Beatrice's shrill arrogance. He told me they had a truck in the area, but since it was a Saturday, the local lots were full. He mentioned they'd have to take it to their satellite facility in Oakhaven. Oakhaven? That was 2 cities away, nearly 60 miles through the worst weekend construction traffic in the state. The slow, wicked grin spread across my face, the kind of expression that usually precedes a villain's monologue. But in this case, it felt like pure, unadulterated justice. I watched from behind my curtains, sipping a cold glass of lemonade that tasted like victory. About 20 minutes later, a massive, rusted tow truck rumbled down the street, its diesel engine growling like a hungry predator. The driver, a guy named Mike with forearms the size of ham hocks, hopped out and looked at the SUV. Private lawn? Jeff? Looking at the crushed hydrangeas. I nodded, showing him my ID and the property line map. He whistled low. She really picked the wrong spot? Didn't she? The sound of the chains clanking against the SUV's frame was the most beautiful symphony I'd ever heard. Clink. Snap. Whir. The hydraulics hissed as the back of the car was hoisted into the air. I felt a momentary pang of, not guilt, never guilt, but perhaps a realization of the chaos I was about to unleash. Then I remembered the $300 fine she gave me for my trash cans being visible for an hour after pickup, and the pang vanished. Just as Mike was pulling out of the driveway, the clubhouse doors swung open. Beatrice stepped out, flanked by 2 other board members, her face flushed from whatever power trip she'd just been on. She froze. Her jaw didn't just drop, it practically hit the pavement. "Wait, stop," she screamed, her voice hitting a register that could shatter glass. She began sprinting toward the street, her heels clicking frantically on the asphalt, her expensive handbag flapping against her side like a dying bird. Mike didn't stop. He had his orders and his paperwork. He just tapped his horn, a deafening blast that echoed off the surrounding houses, and kept rolling. Beatrice reached the edge of my lawn, gasping for air, her face turning a shade of purple that matched her crushed flowers. "What have you done?" she shrieked, turning to me as I stood calmly on my porch. "That's my car. You stole my car." I took a slow sip of my lemonade, letting the ice clink against the glass. "I didn't steal anything." "Beatrice?" "Is it?" My voice steady and cool. "I simply had a trespassing vehicle removed from my private property." Isn't that what the HOA handbook recommends? Section 4. Paragraph 12? Vigilance in maintaining the standards of our community? She was shaking now, her eyes wide and bloodshot behind her glasses. "Call them back. Tell them to bring it back right now," she demanded, her finger pointing at me so hard it was trembling. I said, "Belonged." Weary sound of mock disappointment. "I'm afraid I can't do that. They've already logged it into the system. And since the local lots are at capacity, I believe they're heading toward Oakhaven. You might want to call an Uber. It's a long drive, and with the bridge construction, it'll probably take you 2 hours just to get there." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the sound of a neighbor's wind chime. Beatrice looked around at the other board members, looking for support, but they were suddenly very interested in the texture of the sidewalk. They knew. Everyone knew. The bully had finally tripped over her own feet. She looked back at the muddy ruts in my lawn where her tires had been, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine realization in her eyes. The rules weren't just a weapon for her to use, they were a boundary she had to respect. "You'll pay for this," yes? Though the fire was gone, replaced by a desperate, cracking edge. "I'll have you fined for every blade of grass out of place," I smiled, leaning against the porch railing. "You do that, Beatrice. But while you're writing those tickets in the back of a damp Oakhaven Impound lot waiting for a $400 release fee, remember one thing, my lawn is private. And next time you decide to park on it, I might not be so polite as to call a tow truck. I might just start the sprinklers." She stood there for a long time, a lone figure on the edge of the road, looking at the empty space where her status symbol used to be. The sun beat down. The birds began to sing again. And for the first time in years, the neighborhood felt quiet. It felt fair. As she finally turned to walk away, her shoulders slumped. I realized that justice isn't always about grand gestures or courtrooms. Sometimes, justice is just a long drive to a dusty lot in a different city, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that even the loudest voices can be silenced by the simple weight of their own consequences.